this one I think came out of the blue. I don't think we were really expecting a new OEM effectively to come into the series with Maserati. So I thought first initial impressions, Pico, on the Maserati news. I think obviously it's great for Formula E, came out of nowhere, but kind of the good news story that Formula E needed going into the season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've just come off the back of losing two German manufacturers in Audi and BMW. At the end of this season, we're also losing the Mercedes team. And so, yeah, I think it's fantastic that we're going to have Maserati coming in next season. Next season, they won't be an OEM. However, they will get that sooner than later. It's looking like they're going to use DS powertrains for the first season. And yeah, it's looking like they're going to take over that Mercedes project. So they're going to be the team. It looks like they might be Team Brackley next season. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic because obviously we were going to lose another team at the end of this year, and so that's kind of saved it a little bit more. But yeah, it was kind of in the works, but no one was really completely 100% sure that it was going to happen, and then obviously Tuesday they sprung that surprise on us. So yeah, I think it's fantastic news for Formula E, and can't wait to see them next season.
Ed, thoughts?
I have a few. Okay. Well, obviously, I'm with Pico in that it's probably good news for Formula E because the last time an OEM, electric or manufacturer of any kind, tried to join Formula E was Mercedes back in 2017, and they're already leaving at the end of this season. So, yeah, definitely need some good news. Haven't had much Italian representation on the grid since Trulli GP folded at the end of the first season, and now we have a proper Italian manufacturer, which is great. It's been something we talked about on this show before about the potential of Ferrari joining, and we always said it was very unlikely Ferrari would actually join. What was more likely was a sort of more closely associated brand like Alfa Romeo, or as it happens, Maserati would join, and that's sort of what's played out. Of course, the link is between Ferrari and Maserati is Fiat, essentially the Agnelli group, family. The Agnelli family, I believe, has like shares in both, and there's these very close links between the two companies. Of course, Maserati hasn't raced in open wheelers in a long, long time, not since Fangio won the Formula One championship in the late 50s. But has had success in like GTs and other categories, but a bit more recently, like within the last 10 years or so. So certainly it's not something that the group, the brand, is normally associated with, but certainly those like electric vehicles altogether, which is new territory for them. But this has all come about because of the Stellantis group, which is basically a merger between the Peugeot Citroën sort of conglomerate PSA in France and Fiat Chrysler, which is of course the Italian side of things. So yeah, that's where the DS link that Pico was talking about has come from, because DS, of course, already with Techeetah, and now Maserati coming in with the links with their parent group, they've got an existing powertrain to use. Of course, it's a pretty short gap between this announcement and the start of Gen 3 Season 9, with testing is going to be like the end of this year, basically, or middle of this year, depending on how you look at it in terms of time. But so I think great news for Formula E, good news for Maserati. Let's hope they stay for a long period and that they can get a great team underneath them. I agree with Pico partly that I think they're going to partner up with an existing team because of the time frame. I don't think it will be Mercedes, or what's currently Mercedes anyway. I think it will be a team more like Venturi, because remember, Pico, when you were at testing, you asked Jerome what powertrain Venturi were going to use for Gen 3, and he gave a very kind of evasive answer to the words to the effect of, that will become clear in the fullness of time, or something like that. I'll tell you when we're ready, basically. And it seems now things have changed. We know a bit more. Maybe Jerome will give us a more clear answer next time.
Sounds very much like Jerome D'Ambrosio, though, doesn't it? Right, with his way of words, right? Yeah, I do. I think it's a good news story. I think Formula E needed something, right? It's been doom and gloom for ages in Formula E. Well, it's just like one battering after another. So we needed something positive, I think, going into Season 8. But we're talking there about the potential, Pico. I'll go to you first. About, are they going to come, okay, as an OEM first, potentially using the DS powertrain, then possibly then having their own powertrain? Are they going to take a team spot, or are they going to take the vacant spot that Audi's left? That's a good question. And then maybe where does this leave McLaren? Like, if Maserati have come in, does this mean this McLaren deal's not going to happen? Is it going to happen? What do we think?
Well, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Apart, if they replace Mercedes, so if they do replace Mercedes or Venturi or someone like that, then there is still that extra 2 slots in the field that they can use. So McLaren, they can come in if they want to. I feel like they need to make a decision kind of soonish. But yeah, for here and now, it's looking unlikely. But then again, we weren't really expecting the Maserati news. So yeah, I think it's something to keep an eye on as the season develops. But they won't be a manufacturer for next season because obviously that list. I think that list is officially confirmed in a couple of days' time. Well, this video might be out by then, but it's looking like we're going to have very few OEMs next year, so they're going to have to get a customer powertrain as well.
Which makes sense, as we said, with the DS link. So, Ed, what do you think going for McLaren then? Because you were, I think, hinting more that they might, the very good tie-up that McLaren and Mercedes have, I think you were sort of hinting that you're assuming that McLaren, if they were to come, they might take over that Mercedes role, whereas Pico thought maybe the other way around.
Yeah, I think that would just make a bit more sense to me, with especially Mercedes supplying the powertrain to McLaren in Formula One. There's that historic link that they used to be effectively the Works Mercedes squad in Formula One since like the mid-90s all the way through to obviously 2010 when Mercedes came back as their own factory team. And I just don't quite see. I think there's a little bit of a conflict of interest with Stellantis, with Mercedes not really being part of the group, and all those engineers and staff, and even some of the drivers, they're contracted to Mercedes. So I feel like when Mercedes pulls out, they're more likely to try for Mercedes somewhere else rather than stay with whatever the team becomes. There'll still be some assets, of course, that might still be lying around. I could see someone else, or Mercedes, the team could even carry on independently as a sort of customer team, but I don't quite see them partnering up with Maserati. I could see McLaren potentially stepping in there. We haven't heard from McLaren. We were originally supposed to make the announcement on whether they're taking up the option or not at the end of last year, and they've delayed that to Q1 of 2022. So at some point in the next couple of months, you'd assume. The noises we've been hearing at McLaren seem a little bit kind of, especially since Mercedes pulled out, they've been a bit kind of, oh, is this really going to be successful for us? They announced they were going into Extreme E for the forthcoming season, so that's sort of underway, and they've made announcements for that, but it doesn't sound like they are as enthusiastic as they were when they signed that option last year. So fingers crossed McLaren, something does happen that makes McLaren change their mind. Maybe this Maserati announcement might be the good, kick up the proverbial to to speed that process up. But either way, I do hope the decision gets made soon, and I hope somebody takes up that 12th slot, because it would certainly be nice to have a full grid again.